Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the Jamodi Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information. I already talked about how you've been a part of TABC for so long. I would imagine being on the board and being in those meetings, being around so many great coaches that are involved with TABC, that you've seen a lot of outstanding leaders. What are 3 characteristics that you would say most, and there's probably more than 3, but if we could narrow it down to 3 that most great coaches have?
Yeah, and that's it's one of those things. I think one of the biggest things is adaptability. I think I we all have our certain style that we like as far as what we like to do, whether it be in basketball or whether it be in the classroom or whether it be if you're a principal, if you're a business leader, you have those ideas that you want to implement and you want to get going. But then a lot of it's the people that you're associated with, and sometimes just like people. I remember listening to Buzz Williams talk one time about the different ways that he speaks at timeouts to his players. That he has different learners. He has a visual learner, and he has a learner that is physical. That actually they almost have to kind of in a little bitty span, kind of show them where they're supposed to go. And then he has some that's it's auditory.
Yeah.
And so he really focuses on trying to hit all 3 of those in a timeout. And I think that just shows that everybody has a different learning style. Everybody has a different way in which they work the best. And I think as the leader, it's one of our jobs to be able to adapt what we're doing to get the best out of people in their learning style. So I think that's a big piece. I think, speaking about John Wooden a little bit earlier, I think the piece where, having faith in what you're doing is the right thing. And it may take a little bit longer to get it done than what you had planned. And I think that's I was with my dad, and so we were my dad was a very successful coach, and I see what he did in a short amount of time, and I want that same stuff for me. But it didn't work out that way. It's taken a lot longer to do that. But I think being able to stick to itiveness is more, just being able to do that. I think, a good leader is able to do that. And I think, building those relationships where all of that kind of works together, where, coaching today is such a volatile profession. There's so many things that, social media to, we face people that, feel entitled to certain things. So there's a lot of different things coming at us, and being able to juggle those and have those relationships with people that, one of the greatest things you can do is, if you have somebody that is not happy, but helping them understand why you're doing something a certain way. They may not agree with the actual outcome, but they understand what's going on, and it's for the best. We're not trying to do what's the best for me, what's the best for one kid, what's the best for one employee. We're trying to do the best for everything.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I think, a good leader has. And I've noticed that, like I said, in TABC, and been fortunate to being part of that for so long. And TABC's changed over the years. I remember when my dad was first in on it, and Alton Ballard was the president of it, was the head of it. And, and it's obviously changed so much since then. And, but it's still changing. It's still morphing. There's different needs and things that we have. And TABC, I think, is really one of those things that's willing to do that. And, sometimes change is hard, but we do move forward.
The first one that you talked about, adaptability, I would imagine there's a majority of coaches when they hear that, they go, like that. Because as a head coach, man, what's a characteristic that we typically, don't have is adaptability. We typically know the way we want things done, and we hold these standards. And obviously, you're using that term not just with your players and on the floor. You talked about with other people and everything. Let's just say you got a coach, maybe like myself about 8, 9 years ago, that struggles with that. They think they have their style of play, that they, or that their way is the right way. What's some advice for coaches to grow in their adaptability?
Well, I think being open minded is one. That's one thing that you have to be open minded and look. I mean, the style I like to play with, I like to push the ball, I like to run, I like to press, I like to do pressure defense. One of the places that I was at, there were actually two of them. Uh, they didn't spend enough time on basketball outside of the season to really develop those skills to be able to do that. So I had to be willing to. I remember one, I felt like, and this is no knock on anything, I felt like a football coach calling a play every single time we had the ball. It was like, can we huddle up at half court? Can y'all let us huddle
I
up and
need
call a
45
play?
seconds right
It's like, yeah, I mean,
now.
but I felt like that, and
Yeah.
so I had to, and I didn't like it. I
Yeah.
mean, we were averaging, probably 30, 40 points a game, and it was what we had to do that to stay in games, and so it was a very difficult situation, but I had to be willing to do that and learn how to do that. And like I said, it was something that was out of my comfort zone. And that was probably after I'd been coaching almost 20 years. I had to make that change. And so, like I said, it's not something that is easy to do.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to do it. And once again, like I said, having the best of the overall program in mind as far as what works the best. I could do it one way and say, hey, no, this kid's going to go score 40 points a game, and we score 45 as a team and we lose.
Yeah.
Or I can say, no, this kid, I had a kid last year that probably could have gone for 25, 30 points a game, but he held himself to about 18 points a game and was able to. Now we had four starters that averaged double figures, and now it's harder to guard. And he was willing to make that sacrifice for the team. We were able to score a lot of points, but he was able to. They weren't able to just to focus on one player, and he developed all the other players. I think that's something
Yeah.
that, as far as a leader on the court or a leader, you make other people better. You
Mm.
don't just make yourself better. And that was one thing that this player was able to really do is Cooper Gracie, who really was able to develop that and really take a step back and understand it. It was hard for him at first. I mean, we were scoring 80, 90 points a game, and I was telling him, look, the best thing about this is we're scoring 90 points, and nobody has scored 20. Not one player on the team
Yeah,
scored
that's
20.
great balance right there.
And so I said, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
But of course, every kid wants to be the one to go score 30. I mean, and I think he did it like once or twice is all the whole year. And so that being willing to do that and being able to convince somebody to be able to do that, I think that's a big piece of it.
And to your point too, TJ Rosine said that awareness is a superpower. I think as coaches, we need to be aware of like that stick with itness is a huge attribute. And you need to have that as a coach, that ability, but then the awareness to know that when you're crossing the line over just to being stubborn, like you're just being stubborn. And what's the reason for that? Well, it's my way, my system. They're going to do what I want. I think that open-mindedness, like you talked about, and having the awareness to know where that line is, know when you've crossed it. And to your point, always circle back to, is this the best thing for the team? Not about legacy, not about anything else.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's one thing that I had an assistant when I was at Hendrickson High School, Earl Cooper, he played for the San Francisco 49ers. He won 2 Super Bowls with the San Francisco 49ers. Loved basketball more than football, but he played back with, he was blocking. He would D.D. Lewis on the catch. I don't know. So that probably dates me way too much, but against the Cowboys, he was on the play and he was blocking, and so I said, "You broke my heart as a kid." It's like that was the one that devastated me. But he was always so good about saying, "Coach, how about this? Let's try this." And like in the middle of a season, we would switch. Now we wouldn't switch up our style of play, but maybe, hey, let's look at, a little bit of a defensive tweak here or there. And he really helped me to be open to, in the middle of a season, changing just a little bit of something,
Yeah.
that might spark us on to do some great things. And, I think that's one thing that coaches really, be willing to listen and learn, even from your assistants. You're trying to teach them a lot of things, but, a lot of times if you're willing and you're open, that you can learn a lot from the people around you.
Yeah. And creating a culture where they feel comfortable. I had
Mm-hmm.
one assistant a few years ago ask me if I really wanted his opinion. And I said, of course I do. Like, I'm asking you guys all the time, what do you think? He's like, yeah, you ask that, but honestly, I don't know if you really want it. Wow.
Right.
Like that was, I mean, I loved it. He was an older guy that I had actually played with some adult league basketball when I was in high school, and he was in his 40s at that point. And so I've known him kind of my whole life, almost as a father figure. Well, he came on staff with me at Faith, and that was a big moment of not just am I asking them, what do you think, but is the culture really set up to where they know that their opinion is being valued? There's a difference.
Oh yeah, and I remember when we opened up Hendrickson High School. I'd been a small school guy, and so I was pretty much the one doing all the basketball. I'd get maybe an assistant coach that didn't care about it or didn't want to learn or whatever. So I was doing it, but I never will forget. I had two assistants, which I'd never had before when we first opened up. I'm like, what? And I was running the entire practice, like the entire thing, and they were just standing there. And finally, one of them, like, I don't know, a month in or whatever it was, he said, "Coach, can you please give us something to do?
Man, that's good.
We're not
Yeah.
in," but I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
And so, I was very, like I said, I was very willing to do it, but I'd done it so long for that by myself. And so I think listening to, it took him, I know it took the coach a lot of courage to say it.
Yep.
And to, say, hey, we're not doing anything. Can we, we know how to coach, and I think that's a big thing about, I know, basketball and football sometimes, butt heads a little bit in Texas. And part of it is, I think that a lot of basketball coaches don't feel like they're valued as far as being coaching. And I'm not talking about coaching in the basketball court. I'm talking about training kids, getting them physically strong, getting them conditioned. They're not trusted in that thought process. And I know a lot of coaches feel that way. I've heard that. Let me coach the kids when I've got them. Trust me to not only take care of their basketball stuff, but take care of their bodies, put them in good physical conditioning, get them stronger, those kind of things. And so I think there's a lot of times that we need to be cognizant of that with our other sports, with our other coaches, and just be aware of that and understand that sometimes we might have to step out of our comfort zone in a respectful way and simply say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Can you trust me a little bit? And sometimes that will get good positive reception. Sometimes it won't, unfortunately.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.